talked about spectrum all day long. I said it was my favorite word, and I continue to say that. We'll get there in a minute, I hope. But I wanted to start with something you talked about here last year, which is efforts to make sure everyone is connected to these fantastic 5G advancements. And you have literally been circling the country and promoting ACP. We are happy to see that 17 million households and counting.
18 million, we can make some news here.
Okay, there you go.
Numbers going up. Yep.
There we go. And more than half of those are in fact wireless homes, so we're really happy about that. I guess what have you learned as you've rolled out this program, and what can we do to make it a permanent program to help consumers?
Well, we'll start with the basics of this program, if you don't know what they are. The ACP is the Affordable Connectivity Program, and it's the largest broadband affordability effort in our nation's history. It's a big deal, and we're running it at the FCC. We've got 18 million households that are connected to the internet. They get to stay online, get online, and we're proud of our efforts to help close the digital divide using this program. Now, we've done a lot of good things with wired and wireless carriers that participate, and we've held more than 700 events at the FCC around the country. But the one thing that's become really apparent to me is that as charming as we are in Washington and at the FCC, if we want to get the word out about this program, we have to work with local officials and local trusted actors. And I think one of the most important things we did is that we recently gave out $66 million in grants to nonprofits and local governments around the country to help make sure the folks in their own backyard know about this program, know how it can help them, and make sure that everybody who wants to get online in this country has a fair shot of doing so. So we got to keep this good going. I don't want us to stop at 18 million. I want us to keep at it. And that's going to require another appropriation from Congress. So for everyone who is a stakeholder here, and that includes wireless carriers, I hope you speak up, because this is a program we really need to continue.
Well, know that everyone here, I can speak for everyone here.
Go right ahead.
We are committed to help making that happen. And
right.
So I just want to say thank you for leading. And we got some work to do, guys. Another area that you are leading is how to better support survivors of domestic violence and the Safe Connections Act. You've spoken very, very powerfully about how a cell phone can be the key to safety and a new life. And we have partnered with the National Domestic Violence Hotline to enhance the process. But I guess, can you update us on your efforts to help survivors, and maybe give us some hints on anything else we can do?
Well, the Safe Connections Act is a really incredible piece of legislation. It recognizes that a phone, and a wireless phone, is so fundamental for survivors of domestic violence. And I think we all might know that intuitively. But in order to prepare for our work on this, I went and spent some time with some really tremendous people who work with survivors, including right here in Washington at a place called My Sister's Place. And they sat down and explained to us how that phone is literally a lifeline. It's what keeps them safe, but it can also keep them surveilled. So figuring out how to escape an abusive situation almost always requires reassessing your wireless phone contract. And so the Safe Connections Act is really valuable because it helps any survivor get off of a family plan, start anew. It also gives them opportunities to participate in the Lifeline program, where they can get discounted service if they're in any kind of economic situation that requires it. And then it makes sure that hotline numbers are not included on phone calling logs. So all of this is really important. And just as important is something that I know you and I have talked about, where the wireless carriers have stepped up. Because what I learned in all those conversations with domestic violence, the domestic violence hotline and all of these people at My Sister's Place, is that when someone picks up the phone to actually get off that family plan, to get a new device, to get a new number, that's really actually the moment that they decide to get out of an abusive situation. So that call to a wireless company winds up being incredibly important. And I know you're doing work with the National Domestic Violence Hotline right now to make sure that the carriers who take in those calls know how to refer those people to other resources. And it's a really tremendous thing. I can't wait to do all the work to finalize our implementation of this law, and I really look forward to continuing to work with the wireless carriers and you to make sure we get the help out there that we all know we can provide.
Well, it is powerful, and thank you for leading. It is a really important reminder of connectivity and wireless and what we mean to everyone every day. So let's switch to broadband competition. You've been a big
That was
advocate.
a segue. That was a big segue.
You know, we have a short amount of time.
All right,
I want to make sure we hit it.
Yeah.
You should wait till I do this with Alan. It's going to be a lot harder. Affordable and competitive broadband has always been one of your top priorities. And 9 out of 10 households last year actually picked wireless. So partially because the spectrum that you got auctioned so quickly at 3.45 and 2.5, it just promises to increase this competition for us and make 5G available to millions more Americans. I guess my question is, how do you see 5G home fitting in with the administration's efforts to bring Americans affordable broadband? And how does it inform you about new spectrum access?
So when I took over at the FCC, we very quickly pivoted to looking at midband, figuring out what we could auction as fast as we could auction. And so we held auctions in the 3.45 gigahertz band and the 2.5 gigahertz band. And the goal was to make sure that those airwaves can serve our carriers who could then turn around and do creative things with 5G. And one of those creative things has turned out to be fixed wireless. And it's very exciting because when you look back on the data from last year, what you realize is the vast majority of net additions to broadband came from fixed wireless. So we have a competitive opportunity for lots of households that's different than anything they've ever seen before. They can look to something other than traditional wired or cable products, and they can compare and contrast. And competition is great for consumers. You get more innovation and you get lower prices. So I think the development of fixed wireless is really exciting. Now, of course, we got to make sure that carriers have the capacity to keep it going, and that requires more spectrum.
Great answer. More spectrum. Actually, the woman who did this, the makeup, she actually just switched to fixed home broadband, and she said it was $40 a month, and she's just thrilled. So it really is happening. So 5G and 5G home, we're very excited about it today, and I'm glad that you guys have heard enough about it today that we realize it is real. It does get better and better with more spectrum, though, as you said. But one of the exciting things that's happening tomorrow is that we will be the first nation to actually move forward to consider wireless broadband in the 12 and 13 gigahertz band. You circled this band last year as part of a key of next generation networks. It took a lot of engineering and a lot of work, but congratulations. And
we're almost there. I
wanna
don't get a vote till tomorrow.
All right.
But I appreciate your optimism. I share it. When I look out at the future on 5G to 6G, what I see very clearly is the 7 to 16 gigahertz bands are sweet spots. So we scoured our airwaves and identified that we have some opportunities in the 12 and 13 gigahertz bands. And tomorrow we're going to look at what adds up to more than 1,000 megahertz of spectrum that we might be able to repurpose for a mix of fixed and mobile opportunities going forward. And I do think it's taken a lot of creativity to get to this point, but the most exciting part is not just the creativity, it's that we could lead the world in these airwaves. And I think the United States has a reputation for doing that when it comes to wireless, and I think that the 12 and 13 gigahertz band is a pretty good example of us doing so.
Well, we really thank you. It's a lot of spectrum, and we appreciate you pushing forward on that. But you also said lead the world, which I think is great. That brings me maybe to the question of the WRC and what you maybe see of us going forward and the United States position where we're sort of not really leading the world.
Well, this year we'll all be gathering at the World Radio Communication Conference in Dubai. We talk about global spectrum policy. And I know when the United States shows up with big plans, we can get a lot of our democratic allies around the world to follow. So it's really important that we show up with big plans and also spectrum auction authority returned to us by Congress. But I think that if we can do both of those things, we are going to make our mark on 5G and beyond. And it's vitally important that the United States continue to really be a leader here and not let other nations step into the fray and take over. I am convinced we got a lot of work to do between now and that conference. And in fact, next week, we are gathering for CTEL regionally to try to make sure we align all of our positions. But again, I'm optimistic that our planning has been going on for a long time so that we can show up at that conference and really be a force to be reckoned with.
I love your optimism. I hope so. Well, I can't let you go without talking about auction authority. It is so important, and I know that you and your fellow commissioners have called for it. We have called for it. I think we've got another letter going out from former commissioners calling for it. I guess it's really important. And can you tell us a bit about how the lapse has had any impact on the agency and again, really this entire global spectrum agenda?
Yeah, for 30 years, the FCC's had auction authority, uninterrupted. And we've held 100 auctions and raised more than $233 billion for the United States Treasury. Like, by any measure, that's an extraordinary amount. Plus, we've done so much for the American people and the American economy by pushing wireless out in an efficient way, getting companies to use it in innovative ways. We just got to keep this going. Our national and economic security really depends on it. I was able to get all of my colleagues to sign a letter, send it to Congress, where we uniformly called on Congress to address this as soon as possible. And it's just vitally important for the future of this country and the future of wireless innovation that we get that authority back as soon as possible.
I 100% agree with you. I was really happy to see Senator Lujan call for it while he was here. And I know Chairwoman Rogers was marking up a bill that passed by voice vote to at least move it forward to start the process again. So it's really important. And I think your leadership there has really been great. And I just really want to thank you for closing out this event. You are great, and your leadership is wonderful, and you're a great example for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.